Will Clark.
I'm Tyler Evans.
I'm Dylan Wheatley.
I'm Logan Davis. Today we'll be discussing school shootings, and we're now open for questions.
When did school gun violence first become a problem in the United States?
I guess it's always been a problem, but the Columbine shooting in '99, I believe, was the first, the start of the recent school shootings, gun violence debate, because that was it 22 lives that were taken in Columbine. That was a big shock because there hadn't been something of that magnitude in public schools in America before that, so that was the big open.
And what happened immediately following the Columbine event? What was the public response to that? Public and government response to that tragedy?
I believe that there was a big sense of panic, as there always is, but I'm pretty sure that there was more secure procedures for school shootings, or if there's a danger to schools. So what we have now, it's with the lockdown procedures started, I think after that, started to really get serious and put in effect.
So I believe there were some school shootings before Columbine, but if we take Columbine as our starting point, how many school shooting events do you know have happened since that time?
Well, in 2000, there's been over 130 shootings total, including universities, middle schools, and high schools.
So do you know how many people have been killed?
Nearly 130 people have been killed since 2000.
Somebody define school shooting for me. Let's drop back just a little bit. What exactly is a school shooting? I mean, is it just discharge of a weapon? Is there some qualification for what qualifies as a school shooting versus something else?
Normally grouped into two different categories.
Okay.
An accidental school shooting, which would be if somebody just brought a gun and were showing it off or trying to be cool or something, and it accidentally discharges
Okay.
and wounds or kills somebody. But a violent school shooting is when somebody purposefully comes onto school grounds with a firearm with intent to harm somebody.
Is there a quantity of people that have to be harmed for it to qualify as a?
It's just,
Okay.
if a weapon is discharged in a violent manner, it's considered a school shooting on school property.
Do you guys view those as different things? Like where you have, say, an isolated instance, someone's mad at someone and they shoot them, it's between two people, as opposed to a Parkland type of situation? Do you all make a distinction between those when you're talking about school shootings?
I think I would probably consider them both school shootings, but the difference would be usually the word mass shooting is tagged onto it. If it's not just a dispute between two people, if the person has intent to harm several, then it would be tagged as mass.
Which is usually 4 or more.
Right.
So do you know how many of those types of school shootings there have been in the country over the last few decades?
What about since metal detectors have been used in certain school systems, have there been any shootings in the schools that have metal detectors?
Have been in some, in the case of Parkland, whenever they pulled the fire alarm, and they still were outside the building, so they didn't technically carry the gun into the school, but they waited for them to funnel out of the school to start shooting up the students, teachers.
How many school systems in Kentucky have metal detectors?
I don't believe we have that.
All right. Let's.
Just a current event. Corbin school systems just in the last couple of months have put that in place. And I think there's a couple other schools in that area that are in progress, but I'm sure we have at least one.
Coach brings up a good point, metal detectors in schools. How do you guys feel about metal detectors in schools? Do we feel like that is an effective deterrent against mass shootings in schools? If so, why? And if not, why not? I'd like to kind of hear from each of you guys. So we'll start with Will.
I think that they have the potential to really help for defense.
Okay.
I think, and like, screening the school. I think that they don't, like, if you look at anywhere else, like an airport or and basically anywhere where there's potential harm of like, or like an explosion or like a shooting, I think that there's still, a metal detector doesn't really catch everything that goes through,
Okay.
wherever you're trying to keep like harm out. But I think it is, if there was nothing there, it's better than nothing.
So overall positive metal
Yes.
detectors. What about you, Tyler?
I don't believe it's like the end all be all, but it definitely would help
Okay.
because it would also and like sort of slow down like everybody's schedule because they would have to pass through the metal detector. It would have to hire somebody else to monitor it,
Mhm.
and it would help, but it just seems like a waste of resources when they could do something else.
So good as a device, logistically tough.
Yeah.
Dylan?
I also believe it'd be good, like an idea that's good,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't see it being, like what he was saying, very good for speed processing and all that. And but it would definitely help deter people from bringing them, getting caught, things like that.
Just knowing that the metal detectors are there might be a deterrent. Okay. What about you, Logan?
I agree. I think it would be, it's a good idea, but logistically very hard because, are you going to have airport style security at every single entrance of every single school in the country? And then that comes with employing somebody to run that, which costs money. And, students have computers, pens, phones, keys, yeah. I mean, there's so many things that you'll have to account for. Obviously, if it was for sure that metal detectors would prevent all school shootings, it would be 100% worth it. But in the case where somebody pulls a fire alarm and all the students come out of the school, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing a metal detector can do about that.
Talk to me about some of the recent school shootings that have been in the news just in the last year. What do you know about those school shootings? Do they all follow the same pattern? Have there been differences in the way? We talked about somebody pulling a fire alarm, certainly in one of them. Talk to me a little bit about those recent incidences and how they have or haven't been the same.
Well, in 2018, there's been 14 school shootings, and 25 people have died from them. Like in Parkland, 17 were killed, and in Marshall County, 2 were killed.
Okay, Dylan, you got Parkland and you got Marshall County. Marshall County certainly being close to home, we'll say. Tell me a little bit about what happened in Parkland. Tell me a little bit about what happened in Marshall County, you guys. What were the parameters around that? How did that happen?
Well, in Marshall County, I believe that it happened before school.
Okay.
It's where people weren't just like going in and out. It was like caught everyone off guard, so it was like a new strategy that would work for school shootings.
Okay, so a little different because it happened before school hours. So maybe not as secure as it would have been during the school day, possibly?
Right.
Okay. Talk to me a little bit about Parkland.
So in Parkland, as you know, the man pulled the fire alarm and was sort of had like his own like sniper's nest set up to where he could just pick them off one by one as they walked out of the building. And the more the gunshots went off, the more they would run, and some ended up running towards the fire, some ran away from the fire, from, like the gunfire, and just it was a mass shooting. Like people who were just funneled into an area.
Who was the perpetrator in this event?
Nicholas.
Well, I wasn't looking for a specific name, I apologize. Was it a student,
A former student.
former
19 year
student?
old.
And do you know about Marshall County?
I believe that was a current student.
So typically, who's the one doing the violent mass school shooting?
Someone either right around 18 or under those two.
Well, but also someone who's either at school or has been to the school. Because I believe in Columbine, they were past students who had come back and had like kind of sought revenge, I guess. But they're either students or they're past students of that same school.
How closely related are school shootings to bullying?
was a scare recently. I don't know if you all heard about it in Jessamine County with a kid that posted a picture on Snapchat, I think, holding a handgun, and the comment was Jessamine County or West Jessamine, you better watch out or something. And I had went to middle school with that kid, and he was picked on by some groups of people, and I immediately recognized him as, man, that kid was, he was picked on. He wasn't treated as he should have been. So that kind of opened my eyes to how much bullying affects school shooting.
I've often thought, we have, after every school shooting, there are mass outcries to either ban or further restrict the sale of handguns or access to them. But I've often wondered whether the real answer is dealing with how we treat each other in schools and teaching people to be more respectful of one another. And that's hard to do when you're immature and we're all a little bit goofy and we're all a little bit weird, and it's easy to make yourself feel better by thinking you're better than someone else. Have you seen in the responses to school shootings any efforts to work on that end of the problem? How students treat one another?
In the media, no. It's all been ban guns, ban guns, ban guns. Don't let anybody under 21 buy guns. No ARs. So I haven't seen any.
Sorry. I've seen, I can't remember if it was in Florida or for Marshall County, but there have been students like meeting together that talk about these types of issues, and I think that their goal is really to like have like a sense of like respect for other students and to like try to prevent these types of instances from happening. And I think on some of the points they do try to restrict gun control, but it's or restrict guns. But I think overall it's just trying to like find new ways. Just students helping other students find new ways to like help them prevent safety issues.
From your research and what you know about these school shootings that we've talked about, whether it's Columbine all the way up through Marshall County or Parkland, the perpetrators of those crimes, and Columbine's unique because it actually had 2 shooters in that incident, and I'm not personally aware of any other ones that had more than one shooter working together at least. In those situations, what you know about the perpetrators of those crimes and the way that they acquired their handguns, do you feel like any of the legislation that Mrs. Aller was alluding to would have changed those situations? Would it have kept them from getting a firearm? Would it somehow have reduced the likelihood of those events happening? And some it might, some it might not. I'm just kind of curious your take.
In the case of like Sandy Hook,
Okay. Good one.
it was the shooter's mother's weapon. It wasn't his weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So you can restrict all you want, but no matter what restriction you make, if it's somebody else's weapon and it gets taken from them and the person uses it for a bad cause, you can't necessarily blame it on the laws.
Okay.
You can't basically do that at all.
That's a fantastic point, Tyler. Any other ones that you guys can think of where restricting the gun or restricting guns from people of that age group or that fit in some demographic may not help prevent an active shooter situation?
I know that it's not in the U.S. and I don't know if it's the correct age group, but in Australia, I believe in the 80s, there was like this massive, like one of the worst school shootings ever, basically. And I believe that Australia just banned all guns, and it actually made it a lot worse. And they go through different like ways to get more guns, like through like the black market, or just like kind of undermining the authority to get guns.
To add on to that, if an individual wants to do a lot of harm, one more law isn't gonna, if they're already mentally unstable enough to go and take someone's life just for no reason at all, one more law isn't gonna prevent them from obtaining a firearm and using it to cause harm.
Can we go into the other part of the equation here on actually arming teachers in the school? Or maybe you guys could tell each of you what your perspective is on that in terms of whether or not that should be done, and if so, how you go about doing it.
So I did a little bit of research on this. Herald Independent Schools in Texas has had armed teachers for 11 years, and each of their teachers that carries a firearm has to go through some pretty extensive training. They have to go through like a psych evaluation. They have to, pass all these tests. They have to be able to pass a test that a police officer would test to use a firearm. So they're pretty highly trained, and it did not say if they were awarded a bonus or not, money-wise, for carrying a firearm on school grounds. But they have 4 to 5 teachers at all times that are armed. The only people that know which teachers these are the teachers that are armed at the time and the administration. The students don't know, fellow teachers don't know. So I think that would be the best way to go, in my opinion, the best way to go about it.
I agree with how he put it, how they should go through training the same as a police officer would, because a police officer knows how to handle a weapon, so if a teacher takes the same training as them, you would think that they would be as qualified as them.
I agree with what Logan was saying as well. Like, I think that it should be 4 to 5 teachers in the school, or should vary depending on the size of the school. And like, it shouldn't be all teachers, because like, for every teacher to carry a gun, it'd be very expensive and very hard to do. But I do believe all teachers should be trained in self-defense, so that way, in case the need arises, that they should be able to defend themselves and defend their students, and at least be able to disarm the perpetrator.
I think that we all have pretty much the same platform on it with the arming 4 to 5, but a little bit further than that, that every teacher would have the option to, if they didn't want to be armed, or if they didn't want to be armed, that they wouldn't have to, but that the requirement was that every teacher would go through like extensive training that would just be like close combat, or just like as best as you could with the defense in the class, and what ultimately keeps the students safe. And if they did want to opt for being armed, they would have to go through, like what he said, it's like psychological tests, and then with that, if we met the requirements of 4 to 5 or just teachers, if we went past that, we would just still stick to 4 to 5 teachers. But if there were not enough teachers who would opt into being armed, that either way, everyone would be at least trained for close combat or trained for safety.
And would you do that, like how far down in the school would you do that? I mean, high school, junior high, elementary, preschool?
I think I would guess the main focus would be on high schools, because that's the age group of kids that we've seen the most school shootings at. You have exceptions like Sandy Hook, but I think high school should be the main focus.
I think also to add to that in our earlier ideas and the platforms on it, that there would be in each section that there'd be like different not branches, but like the wings of the school and the different areas of the school that if there were that amount of 4 to 5 teachers, that they would be spread out equally among the school, and that would also be for like the Tates Creek campus as well. So just that we could maximize the potential safety.
Is Ms. Clark here?
Thinking about, some teachers who are thinking, wait a minute, I'm a teacher. I don't want to learn, I don't want to learn, nor do I want to be responsible for being the one who's going to take action to defend it. Somebody comes into the school with a gun, I'm running and hiding too. I didn't sign up to put my life on the line. I love you guys, but what about a teacher who has that position? I would go after him for you, but other people may feel differently. They better run the hide.
Unfortunately, in the world we live in, that's our reality. And as a teacher, I don't know, put words in your all's mouth, but
Good call.
I would assume that would be kind of that's a risk you're willing to take.
So do you think that's something that people who are going into education these days need to have on their mind?
I think it's for sure